Printing in the cloud, as Paul talked about early on when we started off this morning, printing cannot move all to the cloud. At least we don't envision that yet. It's a production process. We don't have a way of moving the paper into the cloud. So the people aren't going to be in the cloud, and the paper's not going to be in the cloud. Other elements certainly can be. So we expect that over time, and we are investing very heavily in this, the aim being, let us provide what services we can to you and to your environments to keep them up and running, to keep the upgrades, management, disaster recovery all taken care of as we progress. And so you'll continue to see, as we go through the next day and a half, some of our new features coming out in the cloud, which really begs the question or introduces the subject of software as a service. Our traditional licensing of our products has been a software license. It's a term license in which people are paying maintenance and support on an ongoing basis to reach our help desks. So software as a service will represent a change. Some of the changes are obvious, some maybe a little bit less obvious, and some I will tell you right up front that we're going to be out discovering with you how to best move down this path. But number one, and hopefully of significant value to all of you, and I think what we have been seeing as a company, Pharos has about, in our 20 years since Paul and Jeff founded the company, in about the first 15 years, we generated about 1,500 clients, of which you represent a nice cross-section. Since we've had our cloud products up and running, in the first 12 months, or about 15 months, we brought on 500 clients. And we did that with a fraction of a support person. Not even one full-time person supporting 500 concurrent customers operating our Beacon platform. From our customers' standpoint, they've seen it with zero infrastructure required to support. So when we do a software upgrade, even the software that sits on their sites, 95+% of the on-premise software that fits as part of our cloud, our scouts and our agents, are updated within 24 hours. So we manage the infrastructure. We've had very close to, I think, no matter how we decide to round it, it's 5.9, 6.9 uptime since we've started the product. Essentially 100% uptime of the software, including as it makes its way through upgrades. So our ability to manage that infrastructure is one of the significant differences that we will see with software as a service. There are still components that are going to be sitting on your site, and there's still pieces that are critically important for all of you, and interacting with our software becomes part of what you do. But we manage the infrastructure. We manage the upgrades. Upgrades should be regular. They should be quick, from every 6 weeks, 8 weeks, to every couple of months, you'll see upgrades. But essentially completely painless, and the only thing that's visible to you is the introduction of new features and new capabilities. And we've probably been operating about 6-week cycle times on our Beacon platform for the first year, and now I think we're probably every 2 months or so we're rolling out a new platform on Beacon, and again with 100% uptime. So we'll maintain the software, we'll manage upgrades for it. It's a lot easier. We've talked about and we've been able to make available, and Bill has encouraged, and Cal mentioned to all of you, and I'll reiterate, we're opening up our Beacon cloud platform to all of you free of charge, no commitment required between now and really the end of this next semester for you guys to get on, anybody who is interested. And we can do that for 2 reasons. One is you're all good clients of ours, and that's important. We want to continue to grow that. And two is, it's not that expensive for us to be able to bring, and you, to be able to bring you up and have you up and running on our cloud infrastructure. There is cost. It is certainly not costless to us to do this. But I can tell you that when I started with Pharos 15 years ago, I didn't stand up in front of a room of 100 people and say, you can all have our software free for the next 6 months. Just give us a call and we'll help you install it. That we were not there. So the software as a service, lower cost of entry, very flexible commitment. And our intent is to continue as we evolve it to be a friendly, easy-to-do business, and let's go learn and explore together. There are some other changes. There are some legal use, security, and license right changes. So for people who have gone through and used our products before, and you've gone through upgrades, and you've bought some new component pieces, and you haven't had to go back to your legal and procurement and accounting people, you might have to. Because now we're talking about a different, once we start hosting, we are talking about some different legal contracts, and all of that information is available up in our community site. So there are some practical changes which we go through, and some of it is security, as was talked about a couple of talks ago. So security and security of your data is critically important to us. And we have security policies and use and access to data that will be important to you. If we are holding your data, it's important that you understand when we would need to have access to that data, what we would do, and when we would not have access to that data, and what our practices would be. So there are some practical administrative changes that come as we move into Beacon and software as a service. Beacon is hybrid. It's there to dramatically increase the speed and access to new features, dramatically reduce the cost to install, run, and maintain, make support much more efficient, and one that's incredibly important to us, as I started off this morning talking about part of the reason we're all here, it brings all of our community together. There are things that we can do for you, and there's things you can do with each other once all of our solutions, data, and systems are sitting up inside of the cloud. So with permission and people deciding to opt in, some questions that get asked, you saw Cal's dashboard from Beacon. You'll see a little bit more as we go through, and there's some very interesting data up there about utilization rates and devices to user or user to device ratio, and what people are seeing in terms of percentage of color use or single-sided versus double-sided. It is extremely common for people to say, well, okay, what's good? What are other people doing? So taking all that information and beginning to bring it up into the cloud and making that information in aggregate accessible so that people have some understanding of what does a typical university see in terms of cost for or volume of printing per user. What is a typical university cost per page? What is as Cal was sharing, ages of devices? And a particular sample, I think, was the average was 3.7 years, and that's an aging fleet. What is an aging fleet? How long should I be holding on to my devices? How long do others hold on to their devices? So there's a lot of information, a lot of capability that we can begin to share that leverages the value of the community of all the people who are using the product. It is our intention to help to facilitate that use. Right up to, as Paul was talking at the end, once we move all the way to the point where printing can be enabled through the cloud, there is also the opportunity to begin to enable cross-organizational printing and printing release, including financial transfers back and forth a la an Easy Pass model for if I happen to have students at one university and they move to another, they go to another, or they're visiting somebody and they want to print at that other university, can they do that? And will the money flow in order for them to be able to make that work? So there's opportunities that we have in the cloud that we don't have today, bringing our community closer together. I say it's hybrid because, as we mentioned before, we're not putting the printers in the cloud. We can put administration in the cloud, And in many cases, we're going to have customers who do not want to see their print files in the cloud. They want to hold their print files inside their infrastructure. So there will be component pieces that are necessarily on your premise inside your environment that we'll need to be working with you on and our partners on how to implement, how to support, how to install. But what we can move up to the cloud to leverage central administration, we're going to do that. From a business standpoint, our intent is to continue to have traditional licensing for those component pieces that sit where we have on-site, like Uniprint. We are not looking at changing our pricing and licensing for our Uniprint products. But as we move into Beacon, we are looking at moving into subscription services in this hosted environment. So, what can you expect? One is that you will see certain features of our products that will only be delivered through the cloud. Fleet management, what you began to see today. That is a cloud-supported offering. We have no intention of making that an on-premise offering. Our fleet management tool is cloud. So we have certain capabilities and features that we have in the cloud we will introduce as cloud subscription services, and that will be the only way we will be licensing them. Some existing features where we believe it makes sense. We may migrate from Uniprint and Blueprint into the cloud as well. So you saw certain elements like reporting. To the extent that we can take reporting and migrate that data and bring that up and do the web hosting ourselves and manage those capabilities, that makes sense. Credit card and payment processing might make sense rather than having 500 different institutions, each setting up independent contracting and credit card systems and registering. We can host it and manage that inside of our environment one time, and allow people to subscribe to that. Certain administrative features and hosting of those administrative features, and certain capabilities integrating with our support. I think you will begin to see that we will be moving some of those elements to the cloud. For people who have had the privilege and the patience to sometimes deal with support, where we're sitting in Rochester, or worst case, we're sitting in New Zealand, and you might be in Washington, and we're saying, well, can you turn on logging? Can you get the log files and email them to me, and let's see if we can work on those log files, and can you do something else? And because you've got physical access to the files, you've got physical access to the system, and we do not. So that necessarily means that we are pushing off certain support activities to you and to your organizations that we might not have to if we can begin to take those capabilities and pull them up into the cloud and open up our ability to support you all much better. So you'll see certain features will be migrated. We're going to integrate the cloud offerings to the best of our ability. We will integrate the cloud offerings with our existing products, both Uniprint and Blueprint. And as I mentioned before, as we go forward, we're talking about now as the fleet management and is something that is available free of charge through this next semester. We will continue that practice of making features easily accessible to all of you. It will also be offered by our channel partners. So we fully expect that and have been talking with our channel partners about value-added services that they can provide. In some cases, there may be value-added technology that they will provide integrated into our cloud, and we are seeing some of that now. And in other cases, they will be service providers who have access to the Pharos cloud and can use our technology to support you. However, in all of those instances, even if they are rebranded, Pharos will be doing the hosting inside of our Amazon Web Service. We will provide the hosting platform. So, one of the things that came up this morning, and some of what we're still trying to make our way through. Pricing and how we're going to work pricing. So subscription pricing is something that we would be looking at on a ongoing basis. It's something with no long-term contract. It's something that's designed for people to get into as easily as possible, which is significantly different from our existing products where oftentimes you've got a significant upfront investment, either in installation or in software license. So we're going to see software that's going to be Beacon software, which will be licensed on an annual or quarterly basis, and we will see our on-premise existing software continue to offer on a subscription basis. But we're not pretending that we have all the answers. There are about as many different types of licensing and pricing and structures of relationships in cloud software as there are cloud software and SaaS providers. So we're trying to go out to the marketplace and be easy, simple, and learn. Learn about what works for all of you and your organizations and what can work for us. So that means that we're going to need to have open discussion and dialogue and feedback, and also I want to make sure that people don't expect that we think we've got all the answers on how we're going to license and support and structure this. We are extremely open to trying to find out how subscription software works for you, how it fits inside your organization, and how to make that work for both of us. So this afternoon I wanted to introduce that in case there's questions, because you are hearing about us coming out now with subscription products, but also open up the floor to questions or comments or thoughts as it relates to us and hosting software and subscription-based software, which will be different from what you all have today.
All right, since we just went through the testing environments, what kind of process are you guys going to have for a testing environment for Beacon and for any future releases so that we can be able to test with our testing environments into your system and test releases and stuff that you have scheduled ahead of time?
Yeah, it's a good question. I had the same question as I was sitting through that same testing presentation. The good news is it should be relatively easy for us to do that, right? I don't know the answer. Is Cal? I don't know if Cal is here, but we can review that with you. I know that we have multiple instances of our cloud product up and running in Amazon, and for a number of our large customers, we will run a test environment that they have access to prior to rolling in changes into production. We certainly are going through the process of having each time that we do a software release, it will be released complete from engineering probably about 2 months before it's going to be rolled over into production. And during that 2 months, we are testing, running it on our test services and so forth. So I think there's probably multiple ways that we can do that. Certainly one is that because it's a cloud environment, you all may be able to be running multiple instances simultaneously for how you do testing, which would allow you to figure out how you're managing test in your environment, and we're just supporting it. And then the second is a good question, and I don't know the answer, so I'll make sure that we get that one answered with Cal when he gets back. But I know at least today we've got production and then test environments that we make visible to people to use prior to rolling them into production.
They're going to be resistant to move up to the cloud because they don't really want their data floating out there and get compromised. So you have a conflict there. Are you going to be able to resolve that with them?
So the question around security and when we're talking to government and the federal government saying no way are we moving into any cloud or certainly any public cloud environment. A couple things. One is we're taking a little bit of a wait and see. We do some business with some very large, highly secure hospitals and banks and others who have similar, maybe not as tight as federal privacy and security restrictions. We had a very similar conversation with a couple of senior-level IT people in one of the world's largest banks who said there is no way that we're going to embrace a cloud solution. We took them through what it was we were building and where we saw this going. We then went back a year later, and they said, we're thinking, maybe we'll embrace it. And it was about 18 months before they said, how fast can we have it? So this market, and Paul's comments earlier about what's happening in cloud and SaaS and this migration and movement, it's changing rapidly. We're making a big bet that change is going to be one that is going to involve printing and IT infrastructures and so forth. It would not surprise me to see, number one, that the government begins to shift their tune on that. I also mentioned we're continuing with Blueprint and Uniprint. Those on-premise products are going to continue to be there. This is not an overnight flip. All of a sudden, everything's up in the cloud. Organizations are going to begin to migrate, and it's going to take some time. Some are going to migrate faster than others. So one is, I think, what we are seeing is we've been tracking this over the last several years because it's probably about 70% of our R&D has been going into cloud development for the last 2 to 3 years. This is not a new investment for us. And some of you have probably borne the brunt of that because that's investment that has come from some of our core products that we've been taking and reinvesting and moving forward in the cloud. So we've been testing this for several years, and we've seen this migration from hospitals and banks and how quickly they're moving that direction. It's possible the government will move that way as well. But the other is that, as Paul mentioned when you talk about clouds, the Amazon cloud is a public cloud infrastructure. We've built our investments such that they can be ported. We're not making and staking all of our investment and all of our direction on the fact that Amazon is going to be the only cloud, and we're always going to be on Amazon Web Services. We're on Amazon Web Services because at the time that we were doing the development, they were the only ones who could handle the kind of data throughput that we required for our applications, but we're building it generically. So we have had conversations with customers who have said, can you build me a private cloud? Can you take that product, implement a mini cloud inside my enterprise, and make that available to me inside? And the answer is yes, we can. We don't want to today. That's an expensive proposition to head down that path. Yeah, it's an expensive proposition for them and for us. So, but it wouldn't surprise me if we don't see something like that. You know, if you look at the federal government and their absolute highest security organizations, it's possible that we'll end up standing up a private cloud for them inside their enterprise and do what we need to do to port our software to go do that. But I can't emphasize enough how much of a shift we're seeing on desire and willingness for these organizations to move into the cloud, ones that we would not have thought of just 12 months ago. So we think it's shifting pretty quickly. Yes?
Yes, sir. Could you shed a little more light on the fact that for now, as you said, the beacon software, of course, including the fleet control software, will be relatively free for those for up until June, you said, for this semester. But after that, what are the full implications for those of us who would not have been able to move into the cloud, so to speak, for that duration? Implications in terms of licenses and cost and all that. Could you just shed a little more light on it for me, please?
So let me see if I understand the question completely. What are the implications of the software is free from June? What are the implications for those? What happens after for those who want to keep it? And what happens for those who might not decide to move into the cloud and into that path? So what we're making available on Beacon today is Cal highlighted, our fleet management product, our document analytics product, which are available today. Those are the elements that we will make available to people. If you want to continue post June, at the end of next semester, then we would look at signing a contract and moving forward on a commit-as-you-go basis. No long-term commitments. The Pricing is or will be available very, very shortly, so that information will be available long before you'd be making that decision. If you decide to turn it off, you can turn it off, and what you will have had at a minimum is a good deal of insight into what's happening inside your print environment. What you will not be able to do, or what we won't be able to do, is at the end of that, if we say we want this capability but we do not want to have or are not signing up for cloud, that capability is only going to be in the cloud. Some of those features and some of that tracking and reporting information is available in Uniprint and Blueprint today. So we can certainly help you to find other places where we can get reporting and collect more data if that's what you'd like inside your organizations. But I think at the end of that period, you'll either have do we continue with the licensing based on what we've seen, based on what we've learned? Is there value to us as an organization to continue down this path or not? And if so, we'll look at rolling into a licensing model there. The question came up about subscription, about people who have Uniprint site license, and will we be reflecting credits towards Beacon because you're site license customers? Yes, we will. There will be recognition in the pricing with discounts for site licenses and people who've got Uniprint and Blueprint today.
So, Kevin, I just wanted to add that part of the sign-up process, there's some documentation that goes with that. So we have 2 white papers. One's a white paper giving a better explanation, more explanation of the product. The other one is on the security. And then the third piece of information that goes along with that is the pricing.
Yeah, and we absolutely expect that Beacon will be priced, delivered, licensed in a much more modular fashion than what we have with Uniprint and Blueprint today. And that, for exactly that reason, the ease of turning features on and off, and some people want them and then they don't, and they might want them for a year, and then so we'll keep that very flexible, very modular in terms of how it's licensed. Was question number 2. Question number 1 was around Google, and we're, as Paul mentioned, we're a NetSuite client. NetSuite has the same solution model, which is that you have access to the production, you've got access to their basically their beta environments if you so choose, to get that rapid access, and you can get in and be playing with it before they do that production roll. I was not aware of Google's model. It sounds like Google's model is you can sign up and they'll roll you early or they'll roll you later. That's an interesting. I was not aware of that. It's an interesting idea, and it might be a good way for us to do that. Yes.
Are the legal changes that you're talking about that are with regards to the cloud and the location of the data and security of the data, are they finalized at this point? And is there any flexibility if with the wording with regards to legal departments that might require changes?
Yes and yes. Yes, the question of are they finalized? Yes. Is there flexibility with legal departments? We'd like to say no, but that's not the way it works. We're trying to make it as general as possible in the contracts and provide everybody something that we think is easily signable and we can sign up for. But the reality is your organizations oftentimes have requirements that you're going to put back on us, and we'll have to make our way through that.
Some of what I've heard today is similar to what I've heard with VMware, where certain features are only available in their web client. Some things you upgrade a VM to a certain point, you can no longer manipulate it in the FAT client. Related to that, I heard today that Pharos Administrator will be going away. So how soon, the difference here is that you guys are moving features into a new totally different product that's totally differently licensed and different. How soon until, Uniprint is staying as a standalone product, but it sounds like you won't be able to have just Uniprint. You're going to need to have Beacon. Bacon's good too.
Bacon is good. I missed the bacon this morning, unfortunately.
And it was good bacon. Thank you.
I know it is good bacon here. If you haven't had the bacon, that's a good plug for the bacon here. It is very good. Beacon's good, but bacon is also good. So yes, the question. A couple things. Let me make one slight update or correction there, because I want to make sure we didn't mishear. We are bringing certain Uniprint features, administrative capabilities, the common administrative capabilities we are bringing up into the cloud to make them web accessible. Uniprint Administrator will still be there. We are not taking away the Uniprint Administrator. We're taking some of those features and making them available in a web way. I was just down in New Zealand and going through some of what you saw here to the point where somebody's making changes on the web and you're seeing them change in the administrator. We're going to have to make sure that we sync. There is so much that we have inside of the Uniprint Administrator that we are not looking at taking the administrator and pushing the whole thing up into the cloud. We're likely going to create a mess if we try to do that. So we're taking the majority of the features that you would be using on an ongoing basis to manage your environment, maintain your environment, and we're moving those up. But the Uniprint Administrator will still be there. Second question around Uniprint and certain features, as I mentioned here, certain capabilities or features and integrations only being available in the cloud. We will continue to support Uniprint as an on-premise product only, but yes, certain features you will not be able to get if they show up in Beacon. So Fleet Manager and the Uniprint connector, which allows us to take Uniprint data, merge it with what we're getting from our scouts in Beacon, and bring it all up into the cloud so that you can get a holistic view of your enterprise. You will not get if you don't have the cloud elements of that. But Uniprint will continue to operate in an on-premise environment, on-premise only, the way that it operates today. So if you've and many of you, actually, I don't know about the people in this room, but we have many customers who have been running versions of Uniprint that are at this point 4 years old, 5 years old, and we continue to support going back a couple of generations of software. So Uniprint as we know it, even if as we add cloud capabilities and features and new products, Uniprint will continue to be supported as you have it today. As it's getting released and rolled out. Don't tell my product managers that I said this. We're going to go learn. We do not want to replicate on-premise what we believe can be done better in the cloud. So our intent is we are taking the features and capabilities and putting them in the cloud because we believe that is the best place for them to be supportable, upgradable, easy for you all to install, and it is the best for you and for us. We're discoverers. It's entirely possible I will come back here in a year and say, all right, we learned one thing, which is some of those features we need to make available on-premise and not in the cloud. And we'll tackle that when it shows up. That is not our intent. Our intent is to migrate as quickly as we possibly can those applications to the cloud that we think belong there. But nothing is permanent. So does that make sense? I don't want to confuse people. But I also don't want to paint the picture that we're heading down a one-way street here, that there is no return. We will continue to support Uniprint and Blueprint on-premise. Our intent is not to add new cloud capability into the on-premise product. That is our intention. But it doesn't mean we can't. So yes, the question, we're not going to take features out of Uniprint that you would need. I hope not. I hope not. Certainly, the one reason I hesitate a little bit on that is that the web administration work that we are doing now for Uniprint is cloud hosted. So it's not that we're taking something away from you, but the web administration capabilities that we're delivering are cloud hosted, not on premise. 2 versions ago, we had it on premise. So that's the one thing for people that if you looked at our web remote capability that we used to have hosted inside, is now being delivered. It's being moved up to the cloud. It is not our intent to have that hosted on premise. So I don't know how much you want that feature and whether or not that's one of those showstoppers, but that's the slight hesitation I've got.